Hi everyone, I will be going over our first milestone project for our final project in this video. So in this video you should be able to get some tips on what to include in each part of your milestone one, where to locate these resources and so forth. So let's start out by looking at the final project. So over the course of this term, we will be submitting a series of milestones, which are basically components of our final project. So this first milestone will cover just the title, introduction, and method sections of our final project. Once you submit it, I will review it and give extensive feedback, and that feedback then can be used to change whatever you need to change in your milestone one introduction and method sections, so that when you submit your entire project in week 7, that hopefully those introduction and method sections will be completely polished and ready to go. We will do the same thing in milestone 2, where we're going to do a data analysis of one of our data sets, and then milestone 3, which includes the remainder of our final project, the results discussion and reference section. So after each one of these milestones, please take any feedback that I've provided, incorporate the feedback, and that way when it comes to the final project, everything should be hopefully fully understood, all the concepts have been explained thoroughly, and you submit a wonderful final project in week 7. So this week, again, we're just focusing on the first part of our final project. So before we even get started, we need to kind of talk about what this project is about. So this is, since this is an online course, we cannot actually tell students to go out into the field and collect a bunch of data and write a report about it. So instead, we're going to be doing this kind of fictitious project where you were hired to come up with a recommendation of which site out of 4 possible sites should be preserved in the country of Belize for bird conservation. And so we're pretending that, we as a class are working at a consulting firm together, and we have gone down to Belize and we have collected data on bird species occurrence and abundance, as well as we've been able to collect data on plant communities found at each site. And so by taking this data and analyzing it, we're going to decide which of the 4 parcels of land that are up for purchase, which one we should actually purchase recommend for purchase. So the data that we're collecting, it's not just of each individual parcel, but it includes the area around it as well, which gives us, an idea of, the entire ecosystems that it's found in. And then, by the end of the project, you will, after analyzing the data, after you've, fully incorporated your understanding of the field of ecology, make a final recommendation. Okay, so that's kind of the overview of the project. For more information about the project itself, in the assignment information folder on Brightspace, please refer to the final project guidelines. So we're basically the country that we are, our final project is based on is the country of Belize. So Belize, located right here on our map. You notice Belize, we have Mexico to the north and Guatemala to the west. And then we have like the Gulf of Mexico to the east. So we're focusing on this country within Central America, okay? Now, if we take a satellite view of this, you can see just what we're dealing with in this country. It's forested. It looks lush with vegetation. Okay, so this is, we have a diversity of different plants here. And so you can imagine there's also going to be a diversity of different species of birds. Now, this particular map is found in your assignments folder, your assignments information folder on Moodle. This is the Belize map, and you can see exactly from this map the 4 possible sites that are up for sale. And so we have a parcel in Gallon Jug, okay, we have a parcel in Belmont Pan, we have a parcel in Coxcomb Basin, and we have a parcel in Punta Gorda. So we can only choose one of these 4 sites to recommend for bird conservation. So we're going to, base our understanding of the field of ecology as well as analyzing the data that was collected to determine, which one of these 4 should be recommended. Okay. Now, before you even get started, there's some materials that you will need to access from the Moodle, or excuse me, from our Brightspace page. So in our assignments, guidelines, and rubric folder, I highly recommend you go ahead and download and save on your desktop the following: the final project guidelines and rubric, the Milestone 1 guidelines and rubric, the Belize map, the bird data Excel spreadsheet, the diversity indices PDF, and the veg analysis PDF. So you'll need these, or you need to access these when you're constructing your Milestone 1. But you also probably need it for the remainder of the project. So I recommend just downloading it and having it available on your desktop so that you can open it without having to open up your SNHU account and things like that. Also, in our Module 2 folder, under the module or the Milestone 1 information, there's an article that you will need to download for this for the methods section of your project here. So it's the O'Dea, Watson, and Whitaker 2004 article. Now, when you open that article, just be aware that you have to actually download the PDF itself. So let me show you how to do that real quick. So I'm going to go into our Moodle page. So this is under Module 2. And under the final project Milestone 1 data analysis, you're going to click on this O'Dea, Watson, Whitaker 2004 link. Okay. Once it opens, click on this PDF full text. Okay. And then once you have it clicked, go ahead and download it. So that way, once you download it and save it onto your desktop, you can refer to it later on. Oftentimes I have students that they haven't downloaded it and then they have a hard time finding it when they need it. So again, just download it, and then that way it's always available on your desktop when you need it. Okay. So you also notice in that Module 2 folder, a lot of the same things that were in the assignments guidelines folder are there as well. Okay. So just have these handy for this Milestone 1 paper that you're constructing. So what is due? For the Milestone 1, you are graded on 2 components: how well you complete the introduction section of your final project, and how well you complete the method section of your final project. So this is the actual rubric, and you'll notice that the introduction includes the title. So in order to get a good grade in your introduction, you have to have a title. And we'll talk about what a good title is about. So in addition to the paragraph of introduction, you'll need to have a title as well. Okay. Now the title and introduction section are worth 40% of your grade for this Milestone 1 assignment. The methods section is worth 60% of your grade. Okay. I will also be looking through your Milestone 1 and commenting on your references and writing. So this is ungraded, but these are just things that I see along the way. So I would rather you make any changes now than wait until week 7 when so much is, you have to do so much. So you might as well I'll give you feedback on improving your references and writing sections if you have issues in that area. Okay. So these sections, the introduction, method section, including the title, are all due in your Milestone 1 assignment. So let's start with the title. So the title is descriptive. Okay, so we're not just saying milestone 1 or final project or I don't know, Belize. Okay, it needs to be descriptive. So aim for about a sentence. So what I mean by descriptive, it should include what the experiment is on and where the experiment is located. So what are we talking about an experiment? Well, we're not actually experimenting, but we're collecting data, the surveys, on the bird species and abundance and vegetation. We're collecting that data in the country of Belize in order to recommend which of the 4 sites should be conserved. Okay, so it can be about a sentence long, and it's going to basically describe what we're doing and where we're doing it. Next, we have the introduction. So the guidelines say that the introduction should be about 2 pages max. I'm not really picky about the page number. If you go over 2 pages, I'm not going to count you off. If you have under a page, I'm not going to count you off based on that. What I am going to grade you on is the what, the how, and the why. So these 3 components should be included in your introduction. So starting with the what. So what is the goal of the project from the company perspective? So if you take a look at the final project guidelines and rubric, you'll review basically what the purpose of the project is. And the purpose is to acquire and preserve 1 site out of a possible 4 sites. So you need to basically describe that in our what part of our introduction. So state the goal of the project, as well as you might want to identify the 4 sites by name, the Gallon Jug, Belmopan, Coxcomb Basin, and Punta Gorda. So refer to the final project guidelines just to give you an idea of what the purpose of this project is about. That should take, a couple sentences. And then now we have the how. So the how describes, how we are going to go about achieving this goal. So if our goal is to acquire and preserve 1 site out of a possible 4, what information are we going to need to collect in order for us to make our recommendation? So we need to find out, what will help us determine which site to preserve and how we go about collecting it. So just be aware that we will be collecting, or we have collected data, field data on a regional and a specific parcel scale for each of the 4 sites. And that data includes the bird species occurrence and abundance, as well as description of plant communities. So this is the information that we have gathered basically from field studies that will help us determine which of the 4 sites to choose. And then finally, you'll want to end your introduction with a clear statement of the rationale for your approach to determining your final recommendation. So based on the data that we collected, which site are you going to preserve? Okay, so again, you haven't looked at the data yet, but we've collected data on bird species occurrence and abundance and description of plant communities. So based on this information, what is the criteria you're going to look for in choosing a site? Will it be the site that has the most bird species? Will it be the site that has the most diversity in plants? Is it going to be the site that has the least number of both categories? Which site, or what criteria you're going to look for. Now note, you don't want to actually state which site you want to choose. You're just telling us how you're going to choose it. Okay, so don't actually give a definitive answer right now. Just describe, based on this information, what are you going to look for? Are you going to look for the site that is the most diverse, the least diverse? Why? Okay. So this is the introduction part, and you notice that I've clearly described basically what the goal of the project is, how we're going to go about doing it, and what we're going to look for to make our final recommendation. Okay, so that's the introduction section. The next section, or the last section I should say, is our methods section. So in the methods section, we need to describe the procedure of the experiment in enough detail that another researcher could repeat the experiment. So this is not something that is bullet points or like a procedure list. Instead, we're describing how we collected the data. And since we've already collected the data, it will be in past tense. Now this methods section is very tricky because you are expected to describe how the data was collected, but you personally did not collect the data. So we're going to be using some references to help us in this process. So there's three sections of our methods section that we need to cover. So the first part is we need to describe the study sites in detail. Okay, so part of our rubric, it says that there needs to be clear, complete, and accurate descriptions of the 4 locations in Belize. So one thing that you'll need to do is you need to have the GPS locations of each of the sites. So within the final project guidelines assignment information, the GPS locations are listed there. So that needs to be included. Additionally, you need to briefly describe what the site looks like. This includes, this parcel map here. So some students actually put this parcel map in their methods section. That's fine if you want to include it as a figure, but you don't have to. But this is available in that assignment information folder. And you'll notice it gives us a lot of information without even looking at any plant data or bird species data. So for one thing, I can see, here's our country of Belize. I can see right away that Galanjug is located in the northeastern corner. Punta Gorta is located in the southern area, right along or near the coastline. Belmopan is, kind of right in the middle. So I can describe where they're located within the country, where they're located in vicinity of each other. Also, look, we have an elevation map. I can see right away that there's, pretty higher elevation in this area. But like Punta Gorta and most of Coxcomb, they're pretty low elevation, but Belmopan's pretty high, and so is Galanjug. I can also see the vicinity to streams. So you can see all these little spider-like, trails in there. Those are the rivers and streams. So you can see where each site, if there's a river or stream nearby, as well as maybe a larger body of water, like the Gulf of Mexico. So all of this information I'm just describing from this simple map. And this will give us an idea of what each site looks like. And that might help us decide, in our final recommendation. So that's why we have to kind of describe each site in detail, just, where they're located, what they, what's around them and so forth, because we might actually need that information later on. The next part of our methods section, we need to describe how the data was collected. Now there are 3 sets of data that we collected for this project. One is called the McCannon method, another one is the point count method, and then the last one's the vegetation communities. So the first 2 are based on birds, okay? And then the last ones are vegetation. So our McCannon method and point count method are 2 data sets, and you can actually see the raw data found in the bird data Excel spreadsheet. So you'll see at the bottom of the Excel spreadsheet, when you open it up, there's tabs for each of the sites. So there's a tab that says Punta Gorta McCannon, so that's the McCannon data, and then just Punta Gorta, that's the point count data. So both of those data sets have been uploaded into Excel. How we collected the data, that's something that you will need to describe based on another article. So in our Module 2 folder, remember that Odea et al. Article I told you to download and save on your desktop? So you'll need that. Now the first part of the article you can just ignore. The main part that you're looking at is the methods section. Okay, so inside that methods section of that Odea et al. Article, actually let me bring it up so I'll give you an idea of what I'm talking about. So you can ignore, you know, the abstract and hey, look at how long that title is. But here's the methods section. So the methods section starts out the same way as ours. It has the study area, and then it has basically the field methods, so how their data was collected. Now, we have the data in front of us, and we're pretending like we collected it. So we have to take this information about how you know, this person collected their data using the McCann method and extrapolate from there how we collected ours, okay? So you'll see here, like in the text, it talks about how they compiled McCann lists from slowly walking trails, and then periodically searching out and recording individual species or flocks. Okay, so you'll kind of read through and learn about what the McCann list entails versus the point count list. So you can see here point counts, they're more widely used. You know, it gives you a description of what it is. You don't need to include that. But it says here the point count stations in both our study areas had a radius of 25 meters, were located 100 meters apart. 10 minutes were spent at each station. And then basically they recorded the bird species and then the number of individuals arriving. Okay, so basically from this, I learned that the point count method involves basically the observers standing in one place for a period of time, 10 minutes, and then counting all the birds that they have seen or heard within that time period. So they, you know, it's not just the bird species, but the actual individual number of birds. Okay, so I can apply this to our data. So in our data, we had 4 sites instead of 2. And so I can, you know, think that we probably sat at a fixed station in the middle of Belmopan and middle of Punta Gorda or whatever for 10 minutes each and wrote down every single bird we saw or heard. The McCann method, it describes here how the lists, you know, we have basically, it's not really a time period, it was untimed, but they recorded, it says up here, recorded each new species encountered while slowly walking a trail. So this was untimed. The observer walked through, just kind of casually walked through and wrote down the first 10 species seen or heard. And then once that list was created with the 10 species, then they opened up a new page and then continued walking and wrote down 10 species seen or heard, even if they, you know, heard the same species from the first survey, and compiled a list. Okay, so those are the 2 methods of bird collection. So we're just basically taking this information and applying it to our particular, you know, scenario where we have 4 sites and looking for bird diversity or, you know, number of bird species. Okay, so read the O'Dea et al. Method section, as well as check out the bird data Excel spreadsheet to kind of see, you know, what the methods were involved, and look at the actual data that was collected just to get an idea of what it looks like. The third type of data we collected was vegetation data. Now, we didn't actually collect this data ourselves. Instead, we relied on a website. And so when you're writing your data collection methods, even though we didn't collect the data, you need to identify where we got that data from. So take a look at the veg analysis PDF, and in there it gives you the link to the actual website of where we got the data from. So that's, you know, something that you'll reference. So those are the 3 data collection methods used, and descriptions of each will be needed to be included in your method section. The final component of your method section is how we analyze the data. Now, the first data set, the McCann method, we're actually going to analyze ourselves. We're going to do that for Milestone 2. So for now, you don't actually need to describe exactly how we analyzed it or show how we're analyzing it. You just need to describe how it was, how we're going to go about it. So if you open up the bird data Excel spreadsheet, you'll notice right away there's a graph. Okay, the graph is wrong, by the way, so we have to analyze the data before the lines will be corrected. But that's basically how we're analyzing the data. We're creating a graph from it. So that's it. Our analysis includes a graph using Excel. And you'll see exactly what we will include in the graph. The point count methods, if you go to the diversity indices PDF, that diversity indices table is based on the point count data. So you'll notice in the bird data Excel spreadsheet, we have point count data for each site. So what we did is we took that data and we uploaded it into a software program called PAST. And then from there, we were able to calculate the 3 diversity indices. So you'll see on the table, there's the Shannon index, the dominance, and the equitability indices. So these are diversity indices that we calculated using a special type of software. So you don't, again, need to mention the table itself. You just need to identify how the data was analyzed. So we analyzed it using that PAST software in order to figure out those calculations for the diversity. Okay. And then the final piece of data we analyzed, well, I'm using in quotation marks, is the vegetation communities data. So again, in the data collection methods, we talked about how we took the actual GIS data from the website, and then we took that data and we created pie charts from it. So if you look at that vegetation analysis PDF, those pie charts are the data analysis. Okay, so that's what we created. We created pie charts from the data that we collected from that website. So you just need to mention that, okay, that we made pie charts showing, the different variety of vegetation communities at each of the sites, okay? So if I go back to let me go back all the way to the rubric. So I've covered each component in each of the sections. So for introduction, again, you need to have a descriptive title, clear description of the question, or in this case, the project that we are completing for this assignment here. So that includes the what, the how, and the why. The methods section, you need to have clear and complete accurate descriptions of the locations. So that's the first subsection. The methods of data collection, those are the McCann method, point count method, and vegetation data descriptions. And then the analysis techniques, including the software. So how are we analyzing the McCann data? How are we analyzing the point count? How are we analyzing the vegetation? So these, basically you can see how this is divided into 3 subheadings. And that's why I wrote it as 3 subheadings when I was describing it. Okay, so in our methods section you might want to have a study sites subheading. You might want to have a data collection methods subheading. You might want to have analysis subheading, just like in our O'Dea et al. Article, where we can see the same thing. Here's the methods. They have a study areas subheading. They have a field methods subheading, and they have an analysis subheading. Okay, so that way it kind of breaks up everything into more organized fashion. So you don't have to do that, but it just, again, it makes it easier for me to read and grade it. The introduction, you don't really need subheadings, okay, because it's basically all kind of together. All right, what else? Now, even though you're only being graded on the introduction and methods section, I highly recommend you start your reference section right away and just build upon it for each of the milestones. So the 2 references you will definitely use in your introduction and methods section is the O'Dea et al. Article, as well as that Merman data that we used for our vegetation analysis. So you can go ahead and create references for those. So it needs to be an APA format. So this is an example of APA format. This is just the reference section from the O'Dea et al. Article. So, you would have to have the author, O'Dea, I forget the rest of the names, and then the year, the name of the article, the journal that it's published in, and so forth. Okay, so just take that information and that you see and then create an APA formatted reference from it. If you are using any other sources, now's a good time to write those as well. So sometimes people look up information about the country of Belize and just give some background information if you want, okay? But these are the two references you absolutely have to include in your final report, because we based our Buchanan methods and point count methods off of this article, and we took data from this website. So these have to be referenced in our final project. Okay. So again, if you want to include a reference section, I highly recommend you do so, and then I can give you feedback if I see any thing that's off with the actual formatting of your references. And then finally, the writing. So this is non-graded as well, but this is just kind of standard when you're writing a paper of this format. So section headings should be capitalized and centered. So you have 2 sections, maybe 3 in this paper. You have the introduction and the methods section, and then some of you will include the reference section. So before you write your introduction, you will write introduction, fully capitalized and centered. Before you write your methods section, you'll have methods, capitalized, centered. Okay, so that's separating the sections, just like you saw in the O'Dea et al. Article. Now, some of you will also include subheadings. So to do a subheading, you'll just use the first letter, capitalized, so it doesn't have to be all of it, and then it's bold or italicized or underlined. Okay, and it's left justified. So again, if we go back to that O'Dea et al. Article, you can see how we have full caps for the section headings, and then you can tell the difference between the section headings and the subheadings. Okay, so there's a distinct difference there. And then the subheadings, they're written that way. Okay. Let's see. Everything should be in paragraph format. So we're not doing bullet points. We're not, making your method section that's 2 pages long one entire paragraph. You got to break them down into separate paragraphs so for easy reading. Separate your ideas. Include in-text citations where appropriate. So whenever you're using information from a source, you need to cite the source that you got that information from. So for example, when you're writing about how the Buchanan method works, you need to cite the O'Dea et al. Article. When you talk about where we obtain the vegetation data from, you need to provide the in-text citation for the Merman website. Okay, so those should be included within your text. Don't forget, with paragraph format, I'm seeing more and more students not indenting their paragraphs, but that is required for this, standard writing skills. So you need to indent your paragraphs. And then finally, proofread. It's amazing how many times students do not proofread their work, and then sometimes the words, if they're misspelled or not grammatically correct, it confuses the reader, which would be me. So make sure you review your writing before you submit it. Just look for any spelling and grammatical errors. Read it out loud so that you catch those grammatical errors as well. Okay? You don't want to have this happen to you. And then last thoughts. Before you submit, go ahead and grade yourself against the rubric. Okay, make sure you include a descriptive title. Make sure you have the site locations. Again, proofread your work before you submit. If you have any questions, feel free to post them for the class, because sometimes you have the same question as another student. So might as well get the answer. So post them under the general questions discussion board. You can also email me personally, okay? When in doubt, ask for help, okay? So I am here to help you through this difficult process, and we're all here to help each other. So if you're confused about anything, please let me know or post it as a general question in the discussion board. Okay, I would love to give A+ on everybody's papers, but in order to do that, some students might need to ask for a little extra help, and that's okay. Okay, so I will be here for you in any way I can. Okay, so if you have anything else, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, this concludes this first video. This again just covers Milestone 1. I'll have another video for Milestone 2 and another video for Milestone 3. So look out for those in my playlist. Okay, so good luck everyone.